what will be Elbert Cuenca's fourth and newest Japanese restaurant. But this year is also the 10th anniversary of the steak room that bears his name and holds a special place in his career. It was there, after a painful closure, that he found and perfected the ingredients of his future success. I'm pleased to talk with him today. Elbert Cuenca, thank you very much for welcoming us to Kazunori.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here.
So your current restaurants are all about focus, which I associate with your passion for perfection.
Yeah.
Steak room, 8 steaks to order from. I think below you say sometimes we have fish.
Yeah, we have seafood sometimes. Yep.
The ramen.
Fine print.
The ramen restaurants, obviously, it's about the soup.
Yeah.
Although
noodles. Yeah.
noodles, although the side order of gyoza. Here you have, we're in the front room is a kind of a coffee bar. The next room is a sushi bar, and the back is the traditional restaurant.
That's correct.
Why the shift?
Well, I guess this is a natural progression because from the ramen shop of Yushoken and Mendocoro, our Japanese chef wanted to set up shop in the Philippines, and of course, us, we're his local partners, and we decided to help him out. And so it was his idea to put up this sort of cuisine, and we're here to support him and help him refine the ideas.
Which sort of cuisine? The front room, the middle room, the back room?
Well, I think his skill set is more into creativity, doing some crazy stuff, and you know how Japanese cafe food is exactly that. It's a East meets Japan kind of thing, right? West meets Japan, sorry. So Western Japanese food. You say you'll have spaghetti and pastas and even pizzas and omelette rice and all. That's where his skill set comes, but that wasn't the original idea. The original idea was to put up a good traditional Japanese restaurant. He loves the Philippines. He believes there's a market here for better level of Japanese food.
So why did you decide to do 3 restaurants in one space?
The space was too big for just one restaurant for us to hedge on just one concept. So we felt it was right to. This was supposed to be originally just like a bar anteroom to the rest of the restaurant, but we decided to make it an all-day cafe and then build a menu from there.
So you're not a cook, you're not a chef, you're a restaurateur.
Yeah, whatever that means. I guess an entrepreneur in the line of restaurants.
So when I read about restaurateurs, they're the ones who can see a space and conceptualize what belongs here, how to lay it out, etc.
Most think that's the process, but in my case it's different. The idea comes first, space comes next. So the idea can adapt to the space as well. So it's not that I have set in stone this idea of what to do and make sure that when I find a space, that's exactly what I'm going to do. When we find the space, we can actually change that concept, or we might do something completely different.
So when I look at you, I think you're one of the pioneers and still one of the leaders of this kind of restaurant renaissance that we're privileged to live in. Except you're different from many of them because you're one of those who couldn't necessarily bankroll it for yourself. You had to cobble together the backers for the early ventures. And also, while restaurants close all the time, and you had one of those, you lived to tell the tale. What was your takeaway from that?
From my failure, to me, failure is always the best teacher, right? I mean, without it, you might end up being too cocky and know it all and not see your flaws. It taught me to understand that I don't know everything, that I can get it wrong. I thought I had it right in Restaurant 12 because I combined high concept, high profile, everything designed by Ed Kalman, and everything was a high stakes game, high risk. We were highly visible, we were very noisy in the media, and I thought, this is a perfect recipe. How can you fail? Everything's there, right? All the resources are there for you to make a perfect location, everything. But in the end, it failed, and that taught me that not everything is going to work just because you think it's going to work. Then you have to be a little more realistic and I guess less adventurous. I can't be too brazen in these bold concepts. Restaurant 12 was a simplification of everything I did the steak room was a simplification of everything I did in Restaurant 12. So what I did in Restaurant 12, I did the exact opposite. So from high stakes, high concept to low key and simple concept.
What possessed you to make such a big splash your first time out?
I don't know, maybe in me, there's this yabang in me. I just wanted to show the world that I was somebody, that I could be somebody, that I could, that I was a great guy. I guess fame and fortune as well.
So after that, one of the things you did as a money-making venture was to become a personal Mac tutor.
Yeah, so after such a big failure, you tend to become a little more modest and humble, and it's a very humbling experience. And so, to make ends meet, my other skill set is in technology, particularly in Apple computers. And I saw the need for training. I mean, how many people out there didn't understand their computers, which I had breadth of knowledge of. I was chairman of the Philippine Mac Users Group at that time. And so, word got out that I was willing to teach people in one-on-one sessions. And that's what I was doing, 3 times a day, almost every day of the week. And that's also where I met everyone who would change the course of my life.
Most importantly, probably, was Archie King.
That's correct. He was my student.
And as the story goes, one day you were talking to him about your dream restaurant, what became the steak room.
Yeah.
And he said he'd help fund it.
I presented the idea to him because I wanted to survey how many of my clients would go to such a place. My idea was to have a speakeasy, hidden, small dining room with a simple concept of just serving the finest steaks you can ever, get. And he said, "I'm in." I didn't know what he meant, and I said, "Are you in? Yeah, you'd support me." He said, "Yeah. How much do you need, and I'll help you." So I didn't realize it much later on that he was actually investing in me. He wanted to help me out because he believed that he wanted me to reach my potential, and he actually liked the idea. He said he would support it as a customer as well. In fact, he was my first customer.
And so you opened the steak room in a relatively nondescript building.
Yes.
3rd floor.
3rd floor.
No elevator.
No sign, no elevator, and a door that doesn't look like a door. So it's quite difficult.
And you opened with 3 tables.
Initially with 3 tables, yes.
How else, because you said it's the opposite of Restaurant 12,
Yeah.
which was the first venture. How is it different? So with all of this experience, when you think about being a restaurateur, how would you define it now?
The one greatest lesson I learned is that it's never about me. That it should be about the people you serve. How they feel and how they leave your restaurant is what matters. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. So when it's no longer about you and you start thinking about your customers' experiences, everything revolves around that and becomes easier to do.
What is that experience?
To me, the restaurant business is unique in the sense that we're entertainment. Okay, let me say that we are entertainment. No different from watching a play or a movie. We're escapism. For the 2 hours that I have in my restaurant, I'm going to allow you to escape from your troubles around the world, in the outside world. Right?
That's why you were embarrassed to call yourself a restaurateur?
I'm an entertainer, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so, but the difference between us and any other form of entertainment, is that we cater to all your senses, every single sense. Whereas a movie or a play might be 2-dimensional, we hit you in every dimension. So it's a unique, approach to entertainment, right? Only the restaurant can do that. So, and me as a customer, I've always had issues eating out, and whenever it's not perfect, and things I don't like, and ruined by one little thing. Maybe yes, and maybe I'm a perfectionist that way, but I like to take notice of the little things. I'd like to think that that if you can just address all these little things, that you would make something so great for your customers.
And so now, when somebody walks into Albert's steak room, what is that experience?
He experiences something that, it's an escape. I think that's what I provide more than anything else. It's an escape. I'll make you forget all your troubles. You take a bite of my steak and you even forget your name. That old joke. But yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. I provide an escape.
You expanded it slowly,
Yeah.
but at some point you started thinking about other restaurant ventures. You eventually went into Japanese restaurants, ramen restaurants, but before that, you were actually thinking about pizzerias.
I owe it to my partner, Ryan Cruz. He approached me for help. I mean, and I like being needed. I like being, having my brain picked for ideas and all.
Can you hold that thought a second?
Okay.
So you won't remember this, but when I got my first MacBook Air, my first and only, I don't change my gadgets as fast as you do.
All right.
Dolt that I was, couldn't make it work. So I texted you. And I asked you if there was a helpline I could call. And you texted me back a landline. And I called the landline and it was you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
I was that guy, yeah.
okay, so you like being
I like being
needed.
needed. My satisfaction is derived from being able to help others and make them feel good, I guess it's an altruistic part of me, right? And so when Ryan came up to me and said, I want to get into the restaurant business, would you help me, partner with me? Because he had no experience at all in that. I said, sure. Ryan and I weren't as close as back then as we are today, but he was on who brought the idea of working together to the table. And then our first idea was pizza, because we had experienced some great pizza making in Silang in my cousin Joel Magsaysay's farm. And then from that moment, it was set that we would do a business together, but it got kind of diverted into ramen, because the trend of ramen came and we started enjoying higher level ramen as what we were used to before. He went to Japan. He had his revelation of what great ramen was. He found a group eventually that wanted to open the Philippines. I got to taste it at the steak room because we used our kitchen as a test kitchen to try these dishes. I got emotional, my first sip of soup, and I said, let's do this. And so that's how I got back into the Japanese industry. Because once upon a time, before Restaurant 12, I was with the family in Furusato.
Yeah, so your family ran the Furusato.
And Zen.
There's
yeah.
two of those, and there's Zen as well,
Yeah.
right?
So the challenge I had in Zen and Furusato is that I shared the same last name as the owners, but I was merely an employee. And I guess I'm a kind of guy who likes to spread his wings and needs to be in control, and I needed to bolt out and do my own thing.
And so Restaurant 12.
Restaurant 12, eventually, yes. Some things happened along the way. I was in the club scene and whatever, yeah, but yeah.
A stint in Mars.
There's a stint in Mars, there's even a Republic of Malate, there's some consultancies here and there, yes.
So there's this great book called The Art of the Restaurateur. And it says to be a restaurateur, which you say you're not, you say you're an entertainer, requires three things: a love of food, a love of wine, and a love of one's fellow human beings.
The third point I agree with very much. That's the most essential. Because it's, like I said, it's never about you, it's about your fellow human beings. The love of wine is great because then you can get away with a lot of things if you feed them a lot of wine. But food is the centerpiece. Food is essential because that's what draws them to your space. So that you have to get that right. And if you get that wrong, then everything's lost. But so if you get that right and you build around that, then you provide an experience that, for some people, it's a lifelong memory.
And yet, you'll differentiate between steak as a product and ramen as a product in terms of the experience of steak and ramen.
A steak is the centerpiece of the experience of a total, a total experience, with so many elements around it. Whereas ramen, the dish itself is the experience. The difference is in a steak, I need to provide you a nice room with great service and great side dishes and music and proper air conditioning. Ramen, it doesn't matter where I serve it. If you have a sip of this ramen and it's the way we intend it to be, the sip itself is what provides you with a memorable experience.
What are people going to experience when they come to this restaurant?
Both. This is a combination of the umaminess of a ramen bowl and the peripheral experience around it.
So we were talking about this restaurant renaissance that's happening. We're spoiled for choice now, everywhere from Quezon City all the way to BF. When you look at this scene now, how would you differentiate it from what it was just 10, 15 years ago?
I would say it's a little more democratic now. You don't have big businesses owning the space. You have all these SMEs, all these young guns who believe they have a knack for it, a talent for it, putting up their own space. And this is great because there's nowhere else to, if you spread it out and you have more of these, then more choices means more reason to go out. And I guess the customer at the end of the day is feeling that it's much easier and much more fun to eat out than to cook at home. I think the supermarket industry is in a bit of a pickle right now. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
They're having to create prepared food for the house because people don't want to cook anymore. They'd rather have someone else cook for them because it's just, and it's not a problem, right?
So even when you read about the restaurant industry in the States, they say that the difference now is that people who can afford good food don't have the big homes to entertain in or have the cooks to cook for them. So you have a lot of choice now. Do you think some of these new restaurateurs and cooks and chefs are getting too cocky?
The market will dictate.
It will, won't it?
You will find there are exceptions wherein successful bad restaurants. I mean, when I say bad restaurants, successful restaurants with bad food. And you have poor guys who have fantastic food who won't make it, and whatever reason, that's the balance of life. That's what happens. But I believe that the industry has nowhere else to go but up because as more restaurants become available and there's more choices, our level of taste and expectation also increases. And so as everything increases, everybody else has to keep up. The people who provide have to meet that level of expectation.
So you have your role as the restaurateur or the impresario, but you have your partners. We've mentioned Archie and Ryan. What is that relationship like between you and your partners?
Well, most of the time, this is different. With Ryan, we're like a tandem. We both run the show. We get support from our other partners in the background, but more on the operation and the front line, Ryan and I take control. Archie left me to run things as, on my own. It gave me complete freedom, free will. And during one of our board meetings, one of our other investors said, "We leave it all up to you. This is your name. This is your concept. You brought it up, to us, and we're investing in you. And if you're going to run it down, then you're running down yourself. You're running yourself down. If you steal from the till, you're stealing from yourself. So just, that's the way it is. So, and I like this freedom. I like being able to do. It's exactly why I left the family. It's because I need to be able to call the shots. I need to be able to implement ideas I have without any hindrance, without anyone telling me,
Do you think the steak room and then the ramen restaurants would have been different with different partners? How crucial was it to these restaurants, to how these restaurants evolved, to have those partners?
Definitely, it matters. I've seen partnerships, I mean, our businesses go bad because the partner's going to get along. How you get along with your partner, of course, is detrimental to the success, right? We get along very well. We pretty much, I think the big difference, Ryan and I pretty much think in the same level, the same direction. We agree on most things. I'd say 80% of things we'll agree on. The 20% we'll both have to give in to each other, okay? But when it comes to, Archie was different. Archie let me run it, and he would listen to me without me being defensive, having to justify every decision I make. He would trust me and say, good. But if he had any disagreement, which was very rare, he would point it out. He would tell me, he would suggest something else. And I might come back with an answer to that, or I might just accept it and do what he says. So, very different.
So this is the 4th Japanese restaurant. After this, will there be more, or are we going to see pizzerias?
We don't know. You know me, I go with the flow. I don't know. I like to ride that wave, I guess. I don't search. Like a surfer, I guess. No? A surfer would paddle out open water and wait for the next wave. Maybe I'm that kind of a guy. I don't know what the wave's gonna be like, right? And I don't know what's in store. Would it be a pizzeria? Maybe. Yeah. Would it be another steak restaurant? Definitely not. Because I'd want to keep things in singular concept. 2 steak rooms would make each one less special, as opposed to having just
That's
one.
your love, right?
That's my baby. That's the one thing I probably will never give up. And that's the one I want to take with me to my grave.
Elbert Cuenca, thank you very much for spending this time with us.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to have you.
Thanks a lot, Albert.